running on from last night. Got the bottom of the plenum chopped out. Figured out how rooted I am, but anyway. So I didn't want to, but I knew I was gonna have to, and ended up ripping all the heater and everything out from underneath the dash, all the piping, glove box, all that sort of stuff. It's not all bad, because while this is out, it would be a good idea to paint this backing plate here, because they tend to go rusty, and yeah, it's not much good once they do that. Also, with the heater core, it would be good to find a decent replacement one, put a new one in, because it tends to be a common thing with those heater cores in these trucks. They give way after how many years, and you end up finding half your radiators draining out your passenger side, and it's not much fun. These base model trucks are a little bit easier, just because there's not as much shit under the dash, but you get an XLT with aircon and all the other bullshit. It's an absolute nightmare, and don't really sort of ever want to have to do that one again. Anyway, so yellow shit's out. Hate the stuff. It's no good. It's just fibery shit, and pretty flammable too, and I just don't like it. Makes you itchy. It's just crap stuff. So it's all cleaned out in here, heap of space now. Also, the benefit of what I'm doing here with pulling it all out, as much as I sort of didn't want to, is when I paint the floor, I'll just keep sending it all the way up, paint under the dash, and that's got a nice heavy coat of black on it as well, and stop any sort of moisture or anything from people breathing in here and whatnot, going under there and turning it rusty and brown and shit. Also, if I need to seal anywhere, I can. So it's not all bad, but it's still a pain in the ass job and a pretty big one, but I will get through it. Also, for anyone who was wondering what I was meaning about the hole in the firewall, that hole there is actually the column hole for left-hand drive. You can see him up there, and then the one above it's for the brake master, or the brake push rod for the booster, sorry. Pretty much what I'll do now is I'm going to have to try and get as much of this glue shit, which is that stuff there, out, because when I go to weld it, it'll just want to burn, turn soggy, go gooey, and just absolutely trash your weld, and then you end up with just a shitty porosity filled weld, which isn't really holding next to nothing, and you pretty much haven't gained anything from all your trouble. So what I'll probably do is scrape most of it off, and then I'll probably try and burn the rest out, because that tends to be not a bad idea, trying to do that. And now everything's sort of away from the dash, or the firewall, I can sort of get into it now and shouldn't have to worry about anything burning, because when I first got here and checked, that shit was straight across, just resting up against where I'd be welding, and yeah, you can imagine the fire I'd have every 2 seconds. So it's not all bad having to take the heater out, it's just, yeah, more work, and you sort of want to see progression. I'm still pulling shit apart, but anyway. So that's the firewall, that's what's involved, and yeah, that's just FE life for you. So that's all the sealant burnout. It's probably not the best way, but it's one of the easiest ways to do it, and saves a lot of time and heartache trying to get all the sealant and shit off everything. It's sort of lucky though, it didn't really stick too well, so it doesn't really do its job anyway. It probably did 50 years ago, whatever it is, but yeah, pretty much smashed most of it out with a scraper. Pretty much just pushed it, and it just pushed out through the between the two, and yeah, just put the flame through there, and it burnt the rest away, gave me sort of a nice clean surface to work on. The only thing I had to do was I did take the driver's side dash fascia out, cluster. I want to do that anyway because it was all broken and trashed, so it's just hurried me up to do that. And yeah, just pushed everything back right away from the firewall, so that when you're poking in there with a flame, you're not going to burn all your wiring or your ducting for your dash, all that sort of shit. So yeah, it's one way to do it. So what I'll do is I'll start sort of leveling the firewall back because it's sort of lipped out a little bit, and what I'll do is I'll cut that back so you can see it's sort of rolled out a bit. So I just grind that flat, and pretty much that should be good enough. And then I'll weld to it, get the two skins at least tacked together, and then go from there. Getting a fair bit welded in most of the way across. A few gaps and stuff I still need to finish off, especially around this bracket and that here. This makes life an absolute nightmare, but it's got to stay there, so just working with what I can. But it's nice and solid again, it's not moving, so hopefully I'll get through that, get it all welded up, welded across, give it a grind up. Start unpicking here, this bit, these two skins that are still left over, get that off, and then I'll cut out a new piece, fill in the gap, get that welded in as well, and then once that's done we're pretty much right to go again. And yeah, massive job out of the way. Yeah, a lot of people tend to just give up once they see the plenum's rusted, and this sort of shows that you can still do a bottom of a plenum and not really pull your whole truck apart, like mostly apart of course, but you're not cutting firewalls out or pulling half the plenum away and building new lower sections and then welding the whole cab back together. Pretty much doing Ford's job all over again. You can sort of get away with it like this and it should still work and shouldn't rust. Ended up picking the skin underneath, or the two skins, sorry. First one I got the spot weld drill bit, and it was pretty hard because you're trying to push upwards and keep pressure to actually get it to bite. Second layer ended up just grinding the spot welds down, so thinning them out, and then just got the vice grips, and they're sort of curved at the back of the head. So what I did was actually clamped onto the tail, so I got myself a tail going, clamped onto it, and then actually rolled it on the heel of the actual vice grips and just started snapping the welds all the way across. Pretty much got that out of the way. Not too many holes, there's a few sort of factory holes and whatnot in there, so I have to weld them up just so that it actually does its job, and decides to actually run the water off. Straightened all this lip out as well. It was actually pretty smashed before I started, but I had to fold it out, especially around these, to get in there. But yeah, just straighten it out so it sort of looks like how it should now. Actually going to clean up all inside here while I brush it, and then I'll probably weld through primer it, or just use an etch, either, just so that it's sort of got some sort of primer on it. And then I'll weld the bottom piece in once I cut it out. Pretty much just weld it there to here, and then it means there's no overlapping panels. It's probably not the right way to do it. A lot of people would go back to here and spot it. It is less welding and whatnot, yes, but as soon as the rain goes in, it'll literally go straight there under this, between the other one, flare up, turn to shit, and you're back to square one, because you can't actually physically get in there to seal it. At least the way I'm doing it, it's butting up against it. Pretty much paint will just fall on top of the whole lot, and there's not going to be any chance of any water getting between the skins and all that sort of shit. We're into it. Paint's on paint. New bottle, gas. So we're all good to go. I've been into it for a while now, just trying to get these bottoms made up. So that's one side. And yeah, the reason it's all jagged is it's a lot easier just to do that than try and straighten the welds out. Yeah, it's a bit rough, but it's going to work. Other side's over there somewhere. So the reason I've done it in 2 pieces and not one wide one is it's a lot easier to line up and shape 2 700mm pieces instead of a 1.4 metre piece. So that's why I've done that. Also, the piece that I found wasn't 1.4 metres long. Everything's all sort of lined up to clean up. It's all been sort of ground back in there, and yeah, it's pretty much bare metal in there because the paint that's in there is pretty much overspray from through the vents here. Otherwise, yeah, there wouldn't be anything in there at all if these went here. So I've cleaned up most of what I can, scuffed it up, got it so hopefully the etch primer will now hold. I know it's not full noise good etch primer, but anything's better than nothing, and it will be getting shot with black anyway. So that's pretty much hopefully just going to bite in there, and then the paint should be able to go on top of that, hopefully. I've got one side stitched in. It's come along not too badly. It's all welding in pretty well. Welder's been giving me shits, but I reckon I've gotten on top of it now. It seems to be welding again. Also, I've stripped up here, and the reason I've done that is every time you weld this side, it burns the paint, and pretty much, yeah, you've got flame as you're trying to weld, which is also burning your gas. So it just pays to clean it up a bit. But it's welding in there pretty nicely. Still got to do this side, but it's pretty much right to go. So it's all painted up in there, all primed up in there at least. I've also got the Sikaflex out, the sealant. I think it's like 527 or something. And yeah, went around everything. Probably doesn't need it, but it does pay to just do that a little bit extra. Especially around these plates, they do tend to let moisture in and end up flaring between, and yeah, pretty much do what my truck's done. And then yeah, you've pretty much got to cut them out like I have. Yeah, just tried to keep it pretty much level in the bottom there, just so when the water runs, it's going to want to run out, not sort of pool in areas and whatnot. Probably doesn't matter too much, but yeah, it's just something a little extra to make sure. So I'll get this side welded in. It's pretty much ready to go. And then yeah, I'll pretty much just fully weld it. I probably won't end up cleaning up this side here, or I might quickly buzz over it, because pretty much all I'm going to do is just get the Sikaflex sealant and just run a nice bead along here, wet the finger up and just smooth it off, and that'll give it a nice rounded edge. The only thing I've really got to do now after this is try and get these plates connected back to here. So either I replicate another bit and it comes up and then 90s like the original, or I just weld it straight to the bottom. Either way, I'll figure that out when I get there. And yeah, slowly making progress. After a shitload of welding and grinding, finally got the bottom of the plenum all done, so it's all looking pretty well. Yes, it's not quite sort of to the quality that I've done everything else, but that's because you're never going to see this panel by the time you put a motor and a brake booster and everything in the road. You're not going to be able to see it, and it's still doing its job. So all I'm going to do is Sikaflex there, wet finger, smooth it off, and that'll be good enough, but I'll do that after it's primed. And then the front here, I have gone a little bit sort of further with it, and that's just because if I want to run a skim and filler, I can, and that's just to make it look like I haven't been there in case anyone wants to pick. Also did the top of this panel, welded up all the holes and shit, and yeah, it's not the flashiest thing, but I'll just run a skimmer filler over that as well, clean it up. Because, yeah, we don't do metal finishes around here. Yeah, I'm not that good. Also, all the holes that aren't needed in the firewall, just random ones that they've pressed in there, especially this being a left-hand drive vehicle as well. Welded all them up, and that's mainly because while I'm here, I may as well do it. And also, it's just extra areas for water and shit to get in, say if it ever got wet under the engine bay or whatever. Also, it's not a firewall if it's got a shitload of holes in it. So they're all done, welded up, cleaned up. I'll just clean this up just to see what it's going to start coming up like. And yeah, firewall should come up pretty easy. But I'll do that when I get to it. I just thought I'd try that one. Also, there's two little random holes here. I've welded them up. And yes, I am grinding and welding with an exposed window, but it's pretty trashed. So what's going to happen is the windscreen out of my truck, it's still pretty good. So I'm going to put that in this, and then I'm going to get a fresh one for mine. Just because I'm going all the effort of doing mine to the extent I probably will. Just can't help myself. Yeah, so I may as well put a new window on there. Also welded up the aerial hole. And yeah, that's just mainly because the radio these days is just shit. So that's pretty much done for here. All I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to cut these holes out and build these plates. That's just so I can get in there. That shouldn't take me long at all. And hopefully, yeah, if the weather's shit tomorrow, I'll start stripping the floors, back of the firewall, and just get as far as I can. If I finish in there, start getting on the chassis here, bottom of the cab. Just try and make as far as I can, because I do want to try and get this stuff painted hopefully by the end of next week, if you say that. And yeah, hopefully see some colour one day soon.